We'll get started real soon. I'm just doing my morning taskeroos. Pin this message. There we go. Manually. There we go. And let's see. Here's this. I'm going to take y'all on a wild ride. I didn't put my phone on my robot. And there's the phone on the robot. And here we are. It's Friday, August 23rd. We are almost to the end of August. Holy cow. And I'm Rob, the developer dad. Yesterday, we did a little bit of a break from development work to kind of revisit the architecture and update some of the diagrams and talk through what I'm doing. And I think I said everything that I wanted to say about that stuff yesterday. I had originally blocked out yesterday and today for that kind of stuff, and we're in a place where the continued expansion and refinement of my system documentation and all of that stuff is not something that I want to do while online with you all, because it's going to be just a lot of me typing and editing and thinking and yammering to myself, and it's not much fun. I think I want to do a little bit more CSS stuff today. I want to do some refactoring of the CSS in particular, and I want to do it in a way that A, is maybe a little bit less painful, and B, brings us some structure to how we have our styles organized for our application and site, so that when we want to alter something, we can find it very easily. I'm sure any of you who've been doing this for a while have seen a minified CSS file, and that's a thing of terror. And you've also seen the large monolithic CSS files that it makes it very difficult to find anything that you're looking to find. So I think what I want to do is we're going to start with our styles CSS. which I'll bring up on the screen share here. Here we go. And as of right now, we've got all of this stuff is all box model and layout and so on and so forth. And I think what I want to do is add a new style sheet, add a new item, and I want a style sheet. And I'm going to call it layout box. All right. And there are some aspects of CSS where I don't have a ton of muscle memory around it. So how to import a CSS file into another CSS file. Here we go. Geeks for Geeks has been coming up at the top of my Google searches a lot lately. And they've got a lot of info up there, which is super handy. So there's the HTML under the style tag, add import. I bet it's add import. Now, excuse me. Many CSS files can be imported using one CSS file. And that's kind of what I want to do, because we've got certain domains of styling that we're going to want to be dealing with. And I feel like some of them are going to vary over time at different rates. And so what I want to do, where do we do it right in this style sheet here, guys? Is it just add import URL style.css? I don't want to do it in the HTML document. Well, let's start off with coming over to styles, because it's going to be our root. It's going to be like our project file. At import, and I need layout box CSS, and I believe we need a semicolon there. Let's make sure. Yes. CSS is weird in its syntax. Sometimes it wants you to use a semicolon, other times it doesn't, and it's just a little weird. So layout box.css. I am going to, just for laughs, take this, I'm going to copy it to my clipboard and comment it out, right? And I'm going to drop it into the body of layout box. And I'm going to save everything. And let's run the app and see if it broke it all. It doesn't, well, it may have. So our footer, homepage footer, oh, that's right, that's feature level. And there's our main page footer, and it looks like we're still good. Now, because we're altering things at the web root level, we should be able to play with this stuff with a relative degree of impunity here without having to stop and restart the application and all that nonsense. So what I want to do is, no, that's moving that whole thing. I want to shrink Visual Studio down so that it doesn't take up quite as much of my remote desktop window. There we go. Let's take this guy. We're going to run him over here. And can I go any narrower? Let's find out. Doesn't look like it. And yeah, I know there's some silly Windows tricks I could do to make this a little easier on myself, but I don't feel like it. Okay, so we got our body moved over to layoutbox.css, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just delete all of that stuff. In fact, I probably don't need to do anything in body here at all. And just because I'm feeling silly, well, no, let's not get too silly yet. Too silly at this point is also known as dangerous. And what I want us to do is I want to fetch. And then I want to pull, because it looks like my local repository is a little bit out of sync. Yes, I'll stop debugging. Fine. Looks like it's a little bit out of sync with something that got merged and pushed the other day. Good. And I'm going to create a new branch. And let's delete these two local branches because they don't actually even exist up on the server anymore. Feature / CSS play. And yes, we will continue our checkout. So what I want to do ultimately is we've got a number of different format font. Let's bigify my font a little bit over here in Notepad. Let's take it up to a 18's good. So within web page styling, we have a number of, let's call them attribute categories. All right. So we've got our layout and box model. That dictates how elements are placed within the browser window and flow around each other. Nope, stop, don't do that. We've also got typography, controls, fonts, styles, anything you can read on the screen. That isn't an image. And then we've got palettes, controls, color sets, etc. Special effects. fun CSS tricks that we can do to improve interactivity without imperative code. Because some of us have an allergy to JavaScript. And it's me. I'm some of us. Like I've said over and over again, there's nothing wrong with JavaScript. I just don't like it. And yes, I do know about CSS isolation in Blazor Rev. In fact, I'm already leveraging it in some places. But what I want to do today is kind of sort of get into some of that. But I want to set up a more, I guess to me, sane and componentized way of approaching developing our styles. And I think my camera wants to look at the cat. Silly kitty. And I'm using my webcam here. Just a second here. Let me turn on the follow cam. Come on, Rob. Here we go. I don't want to use FaceTime HD. I'll flip over to this. Here we go. Now we're on the follow cam. Ooh. All right. So I've created a new style sheet over here in my project called Layout Box CSS. And I am going to move all of this stuff. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to comment it. Let's make sure I don't break it. Okay, good. I'm going to come over to Layout Box CSS. What's going on here? Stop. Here we go. Paste. And I can actually get rid of this because those are dead attributes. They're commented out. All right. And I can save all, and I should be able to run my app without noticing any difference to the layouts. Because all I did was move all of this layout and box stuff into a separate file that's linked into my styles CSS. And it looks like nothing appreciable has changed. Where is my grab handle? Here we go. All right, good. Our footer is still appearing when we're in desktop. Our app footer is appearing when we're in desktop mode. Our home page, our feature footer is still showing up. The NPCs still look good. Our scrollable areas have been preserved and are respected. So let's shrink this back down to where it was. And I do need to stop the project one more time because I got to add a few more CSS files. Add a new item, dir, and I need a style sheet, and I'm going to call this typography. And we're going to add another one. We're going to call it oh gosh. Palettes. And I'm a little undecided on how I want to tackle palettes. And one more. And I'm going to call it root. All right. Now root is going to get these. And root.css declares CSS variables and their values that we can apply throughout our site's CSS structure. Save that. And I should probably bring that in right at the top. Import. Root. Now, layout comes next. Import. Typography. Import palettes. I feel like yeah, I'm not sure I like the name palettes because I feel like I should be assigning the color values for the palette in root, but I want to set up the color values for my palette as along with the variables that name the roles that will get them applied. So, yeah. Let's save all of this. Come back over to my comment. Through our CSS sites, through our site's CSS structure, we will define the basic palette colors as variables here. And assign them to elements and classes in the palettes.css file. We will also assign global baseline style values here as well. And I discovered, or I did look up the difference between EM and REM last night or the night before, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So let's see here. I do want to look up the actual meaning of this pseudo selector :root. So let's go back to here. I'm just going to come up into the address, the main typing window in Safari, and say, in CSS, what is the purpose of the, selector? And I just want to get it dead straight in my head. Used to select the highest level parent of a given specification. The root is essentially equivalent to the HTML selector. Essentially, okay, let's take a look at this article. I'm just going to very quickly summarize it as I skim it, because I do want to have a solid understanding of what I'm about to work with. So here we go. So our root and HTML styles will do the exact same thing here. In fact, the root selector has more authority than HTML. Okay, excuse me. The pseudo class selector, it has more authority, higher specificity than tag selectors. Okay, good. Aha, excellent. CSS is also designed for SVG and XML. You can use root and it will just correspond to a different element. Okay. So I need to be careful using SVG elements here, or I'm going to have problems later on. It's a safe substitute for the HTML selector. That means you can do anything you'd normally do with the HTML selector. If you'd like, you can refactor this code to use CSS custom properties to create variables at the global level, which is what I want to do. Now, there's another thing that I want to do with this root concept. So, we're not going to use it yet. I'm not going to look it up yet. I'm just going to pull this over here, bring this over here. So let's start with some simple things. Font family. Get out of here. I'm going to come over to Style CSS and grab this. Move you into root. And, double attributes. There we go. Let's pop over to the end and go font size. Let's say standard is 16 pixels. Save it. Let's run our app. And then we're going to play with that font size and see what it does for or to us. My camera appears to be cutting off the top of my head, so I'm going to make myself a little bit taller over here. Whoop. Hello. I'm going to make me overall smaller over here. All right, so this looks to be pretty all right. Let's go into where we've got a flood of text. All right. Good, good, good. Let's view something where there's more text. All right. So what can we do with this? Well, we could be really, really mean to our far-sighted friends, or we could be really, really nice to our nearsighted friends. And we can go back to our list and we see that our scroll bars are still being awesome. And we can even just go all the way home. And we can see what's going on over here. All right, but I'm going to take this back to 16 pixels. And why am I picking 16? Well, it's slightly larger than 12, but it's not so much larger. It's also evenly divisible by 2 and 4. What if I went to 12? That's fine print level nonsense, and I'm not sure I like it. It's a little too small. It's a little bit too small. I think 16 is going to be the way to go. And I know I've seen 16 used a lot all over the place, and that's probably why. I was angling for 12 because it's evenly divisible by 2, 3, 4, and 6. But I think 16 is going to be the way to go, just in terms of accessibility is concerned. So we have our base font size. But what I want to do base font size 16 pixels. Var base font size. Save that. And there's a method to my madness. And this, hang on. I'm a stickler for naming things. Rename variables. And I gotta pop back over to styles and change that from root to variables. And we're gonna need to import this guy in all of the other CSS files. Because we're gonna need those values in a little bit. Now, instead of setting, and let's rerun, instead of setting these attributes here, whoops, base font, not size, font. Family. I'm going to copy that, come out here, paste it here, add my semicolon, and I'm going to take these guys, these actual CSS attributes, and I'm going to move them into typography on the body tag. And we can just scooch all of this stuff over. As a matter of fact, rather than doing that, I'm just going to unpin that whole section. Let's save everything. And we see that we don't have any changes. And that's good. We don't want changes yet. Just for sake of silliness. Does Windows still have a font gallery? I would like to see, okay, here we go. Now, if I were feeling super silly, oh, they got rid of Chiller. Bummer. If I was feeling goofy, I could conceivably, well, first thing I got to do is this, var, base, font, family, save that. And come over to my variables, and I'm going to copy, paste it, and I don't like this compressed nonsense. I'm just going to have to do this. Where the hell is comment? I know, I should learn the things. What if I say Gabriella? And then I think I go Comic Sans. I think that's the name of the font. Comic Sans MS. Now I've got to do that in proper case. And let's find some other silly fonts. So Gabriella looked good. Seago script. That could be fun. Oh, what the heck. Wingdings. Save all of that. Base font family. Is it being respected? It doesn't look like it is. Let's try rebooting the application. I may have done this completely wrong. Yeah, it doesn't recognize any of these fonts, so it's throwing up. But you get the point. I could change these fonts around all I want, as long as the browser is aware of which font I've chosen. Now, I also want to color primary. Base primary. And let's go with RGB. So I'm going to go with a higher red, but not cranked all the way up to FF. Let's go with DD CC AA. Here's where we assign the basic color palette variables. And let's come over to palette. Say background color is going to be var color base primary. And that may or may not do anything for us. Do I have it set up correctly up here? All right. That's all commented out. Do I have anything else overriding it? Let's inspect. Hack! I'll come up to body. Color base primary is not defined. Okay, so let's go to palettes. Oh, I think I know what I goofed up. I think I know exactly what I goofed up. So I changed the name of root.css. Here's variables. Here's variables. Variables. Good. All right. Am I using var correctly? I think I goofed something up somewhere. It's okay, we'll find it. Let's go up to body. This is background color, var. So that's defined. Good. It doesn't like it, but it's defined. And for some reason, it's not seeing the change. So I might actually have to refresh. It's so weird. Hey, we got our base color and we've got our regular font families back. Now, with color theory, color-based primary, color base complementary, and I bet there is a color picker thing out here somewhere, because I'm pretty good at calculating hex values for colors in my head, but I'm not so great at visualizing the color wheel based on hex values and then mapping to the opposite. So let's open a new tab here and RGB color wheel with complementary RGB color palette builder. Coolers, create a palette. Yeah, whatever, we'll do that. Let's go. Hit the space bar to generate. I don't want to generate a random palette. Color, click the lock icon. Nuances. Oh, stop that. I don't want all this. Okay, go away. Nope, that's a pro feature. All right, this is not what I had in mind. Not what I wanted at all. Go away. Color designer, Adobe Color, colors, super color, fast color palettes generator. Color wheel. Let's see if Figma's got a good one. Here we go. So this will tell me my complementary, split, monochromatic, all that good stuff, right? So how did I declare that over here? DDCCAA. DDCCAA. What if we do a split? Eh? Meh. Those ain't bad. Analogous? Triadic. Square. Those aren't bad. However, I do want something lighter here, more towards orange, and a slightly higher value. Those ain't bad, but I really need something more high contrast. And these look very soccer mom. Forgive me. What if I went with a... What if I want that? See, that doesn't really do much for me in terms of high contrast at all. But I do like those colors. Those are very attractive, very soothing. Anyway, so color-based primary, no. I want to do RGB color palette builder with high contrast. Don't want to go back into coolers. Cross checker. Because we need high contrast. Color scheme generator. Let's take a look at this. And if I go DDCCAA, it's called Wheaten. So here's shades, here's tints, tones, analogous, monochromatic, split complementary. I quite like that. And I'd want to do a darker shade of that one. And the reason I'm being so weird and picky about these colors is because they absolutely matter. And I'd like to know if there's some calculation for this kind of thing. I really like that triadic scheme. And the tetradic is not great. But let's pull this over here. Color base primary, color base secondary. We're going to go with pound AA DDCC. So all it's doing is shifting right, color, base, tertiary, and I need CCAADD. Save. So this is our primary palette. Color, base, white. And this is where I'm going to get a little weird. I'm not just going to define FFFF. FF. I'm going to do FFEECC. And for color base black, I'm going to do pound 443300. And so we've got the same proportions, or not the same proportions, but the same value levels. And all we're doing is we're sliding up and down the scale. And I'm going to change that to lightest primary. Darkest primary. And I've already screwed up my my taxonomy here. Now, the problem with this taxonomy actually, no. Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. And let's go color, lightest, secondary. We take that all the way up to CCFFEE. Kafivi, color, darkest, secondary. Pound, 00, Rob, 004433. Color, lightest, tertiary. And we're only going to do 3 sets. Because any more than 3, I don't know what the word for 4 is in primary, secondary, tertiary. Quaternary. So the color lightest tertiary is going to be EECCFF. Color darkest tertiary is 330044. And we're going to need color plain black, but I'm going to try to avoid using these. Color plain white. Hashtag FFFFFF. All right, so we've got some high value colors, or we've got our base palettes, and then we've got high value and low value variations of these different tints. And now what we can do is we can start applying them to our screen elements. So we've got our background color set out on the palettes, right? And there's background color, var, color base primary, whatever. We could go color, var, color, darkest, let's say secondary. Save it all. We probably have to refresh because it probably needs to do some background recompilation. And we can see that we've just kicked everything off to a sort of darkish green. And I kind of dig that. I kind of dig that quite a lot. But I think we can go a little further. with how we're using these. Now that we've defined our palettes or our palette, I think we can go a little further and having done this manually, I feel is not the way to go. I feel like there's a better way. And CSS functions for color. And let's take a look at what the Mozilla Developer Network says about our color functions. Support for a particular color space can be detected with the color gamut CSS media feature. Yeah, I'm not concerned about that. Of the allowed values for both absolute and relative colors. So we can do relative values or absolute values. Color space. I don't know what this display-p3 is. That's weird. One of the predefined color spaces. So srbg linear, display p3. So that's interesting. Okay. There's a number or percentage of the keyword none. Alpha value representing the alpha channel value of the color. 0, it's a decimal, whereas 0 to 1. Color space. Generally one of the predefined color spaces. Number. This is a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be. Relative color output channel components. RGB values inside a color function. From HSL. I'm not going to mess with HSL. I've never understood hue, saturation, and lightness. Okay. So red A98 RGB. What the heck is that? Red Pro Photo. Okay, so that's interesting. XYZ color space. Oh, it really doesn't like that. Color gamut media queries. Oh, that's bonkers. Relative colors. What does that mean? From var base color, display P3R calc. Oh my god. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. This is something that I could really dig into and geek out about. Because I do like art and I do like making art and futzing about with colors and stuff like that. But I think that's a giant rabbit hole that I could fall down, and I really don't want to. But what I want to do is define roles. So in here, we've got a number of different things. Now that we've assigned our palette, we can apply those colors to the different roles we'll see in our CSS and HTML elements. So, header, primary background. We're going to use var. Yeah, primary. And we'll use color darkest primary. Color darkest primary. Header, primary, foreground, var, color, lightest, primary. Now, what does that do for us? Let's come out to palettes and dot feature host header background color is var. And how do they define those? Header, primary background, color, var, header, primary, foreground. Save all of that and we'll refresh. And there we go. And I just noticed that I've got some padding around that. Or I've got some, it's either padding or margin. And I want to say it's feature host. We don't have any padding in there. Oh, there's the padding. What if I take that out of here? And I'm going to cut this and save it. That's better. But I don't want to completely lose all of my padding. I just want it to apply to the children. Feature host, direct children. I'm going to apply that padding in here. And there we go. We're back to our correct spacing, but we've got all of the space, like everything is squished out to the edges, but we're nice and we're still not like flush up to the edge of the screen on these things. So feature host header, flex 00, we don't have any extra padding in there. And so let's, one last thing to do here before we break for until this afternoon. Let's look at this guy. So we've got our manage NPCs, we're back to list, all that good stuff, right? And feature host header, position, we need to align items. I just noticed to the center. There we go. That's a little better, isn't it? And I want to come back over to our variables. And header primary accent is going to get var color base primary. No. Secondary. And I think instead of primary, secondary, tertiary, I'm going to go L1, 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 so level 1, and L1, L1, save everything. That's better. And on my layout box, I am doing that here, but I'm going to take this out, save that, and I'm going to come over to my palettes, and on feature host header, I'm going to assign border bottom color, imports the variable header L1 accent. And just so that we can see it, I'm going to make a big fat frickin' border here. I'm going to go all the way up to 5 pixels. And do I like that for the bottom border? I don't. So I'm going to come over to my palettes here. No, I'm going to come over to variables. And I'm going to say lightest. Save all. I don't know that I dig that. I'm just going to go with color plain black. Save that. Save everything. Do I have to refresh, or will it just refresh automatically? Oh, I blew some shit up. Oops. Oh no, I went to the wrong place. I have to view to see it properly. All right, so there's that. And I don't intend to keep these colors. I will do some more playing around to find a good palette for this later, but this is how we apply it across our site. And then so what we'll do is we'll do, say, footer L1 BG. It's var color darkest primary. And we're just going to make a sandwich. I'm going to change that header on these two lines. And I may even be going too fine-grained. But I can come out here and go feature, host, footer. Whoops. Come out the end, do that. Grab these attributes, paste them here, go footer, 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 save it all, and save townsperson is a task, but there we go. We've just applied all of that stuff. And so we can go through the rest of our work just by assigning different variation, or we set up our palette. We can assign that to roles. Or we can use our palette to assign it to different UI element roles. And I think rather than going header and footer, I just want to go banner. So let's do this. V banner L1, copy, no, paste, paste, get rid of these guys, come over to our palettes.css, and wherever I had header or footer, I just changed that to banner. Save it all. And I think I goofed something up. Color plain black. I can come back over to my layout box and turn this back into a 1px solid. There's that. Probably have to save that. And now I should be able to refresh, or I might have to come over here and touch my palettes file. Or I might have to just restart the whole darn thing. And there we go. We're back to where we were. And then I'm going to finish setting up and playing with this palettes concept that I have. I'm going to need to do something about the nav bar because it's using that CSS isolation thing that Rev mentioned in the chat to set that butt ugly gradient and the purples and all of that stuff, and that's way outside of our selected colors. So I want to try and fix that up a little bit. And then this afternoon we're going to play around with some typography and see what we can do with that, as far as making things nice and consistent but well proportioned across the entire application. So until then, take care of yourselves. I'm that developer dad. You can find me at thatdeveloperdad.com, or there's a Linktree link, and there's places where you could buy me a coffee if you're feeling generous. I love coffee. I drink too much of it and it makes me have to run to the bathroom all the time, but coffee is good. And I will see you all again this afternoon. Take care of yourselves. Happy coding.